I was recently browsing the internet, yet again looking to ease my constant and ongoing need to find another video game to activate the serotonin receptor in my brain, so I can obsess over it for a couple of weeks and then never think about it again. You know, the usual. During this search, I came across a game that is, according to the reviews I saw, extremely difficult and unfair. I love difficult video games. I love the rewarding feel of mastering a game that is known to be notoriously hard. That is what gets me notoriously. Never mind. In note of this, I have to bring up a cliche now. It's an amazing and very well crafted cliche, but it's a cliche either way. Dark Souls. The first time I ever played Dark Souls was after finding the Prepare to Die edition of Dark Souls 1 in my local game shop. I saw the art of the game on the case and it was more than enough to entice me. I picked it up, I took it to the counter, and the worker laughed at me and said good luck with that game. I was confused, I'd never heard of the Souls games at the time, and my young naive self thought I had actually mastered video games because I was good at stuff like Call of Duty Zombies. I chuckled a little bit and I took the game home. I booted the game up and I started. Within 5 minutes I was confused as fuck. Why isn't the pause button pausing the game? What do all these icons mean? Why are the enemies doing so much damage? Why is my sword broken? And why does my character look like a pepperami? After being wrecked over and over by the first enemies of the game, I reached the first boss. My health is extremely low. The asylum demon jumps down from the roof. I run up and I hit him. I deal almost unnoticeable damage. Straight away I'm thinking to myself, there's no way this fight is possible. Like, I don't even have a way of healing. I quit the game and I'm thinking at this point that people say the game's hard but it's just stupid, it's definitely not fair. The next day I took it back, got a full refund. A year or so later, a friend of mine gave me his old Xbox 360 with a hard drive full of games. In with these games was Dark Souls 1 and 2. I was down on my luck at this point in my life, and I didn't have much, so this Xbox was my only source of entertainment. So I decided to load up Dark Souls again and give it a real try. I was looking for a big game to sink my teeth into to distract me from the world. And after playing it for a while, that's when I learned the one crucial part of Dark Souls. It's the fact that it's not unfair, it's just that the game does not hold your hand. I was so used to the typical game telling me exactly what I need to do, exactly where I need to go, and exactly who I need to speak to. But not this game. Dark Souls starts off by slapping you in the face and calling you a complete bitch, and telling you no, there's no easy way here. You have to put in the effort and learn. And that's exactly what I did. Hundreds and hundreds of hours later, I'd played all the Soulsborne games, I was doing the challenge runs, I was enjoying PvP, I was speedrunning, and I was even using mods to randomise enemies and randomise the items. I had done it. I'd become the truest Chad of all the Chads. The whole point of this was the fact that the game is not unfair. You just have to respect the game and you have to put in the time to learn how to play it. And that's what I always loved about the Souls games. They provide something new and exciting, an experience that transcends the boundaries of gaming and teaches you a valuable lesson for life. You won't always have your hand held. You need to put in the time to learn how things work and not just expect to reap the rewards without first putting the time and the effort in. When you look online, you're going to see many people talking about how Dark Souls is apparently unfair. But once you've played the game long enough to learn the basic mechanics and stop huffing the copium, you'll realise that it's not the game, it's you, and you need to get better. But what happens when you do have punishing gameplay that does require learning, but also has hardcore and unfair mechanics thrown in there? You get a game like Fear and Hunger. Fear and Hunger is extremely difficult and unfair, and that is what pulled me in. It's so rare to find a game that is literally built to be unfair. This is complemented by the dark, gritty art style and the desolate, hopeless sounding music. I found the game by chance, looking for something new. I usually would have never played these RPG Maker 2D sort of games, but I decided to branch out a bit and give it a go. Mainly out of curiosity, just to see if the game really is as difficult as people make out. And oh boy it is. My first time opening the game led me to the option of picking one of 4 crudely drawn starting characters. There's the buff guy, the little ginger knight, Ghostmane's sleep-deprived cousin, and then the buff man again but with a cape. You don't get much information on the difference between these characters when it comes to mechanics, but you do get a very small text introduction and then you're thrown directly into the game. My first time playing went a little bit like this. I started the game outside the Dungeon of Fear and Hunger. I started moving around, getting to grips with the controls. They're very simple. Arrow keys to move, escape to open the menu where I can access my inventory, skills and options, and the spacebar to interact. Around 30 seconds into finding my feet, I suddenly heard a visceral series of barks. The sound design is incredible on this game. Everything sounds so real and raw. I decided I better look around. But then I hear the barks again. They sound louder and closer this time. I hear barking again, but this time followed by the sight of some dogs running directly at me, outpacing me. I never before thought I could genuinely be scared by a 2D game until this moment. The dogs quickly reach me and I'm instantly thrown into combat. I don't really know what's going on with everything happening so quickly, but I presume it's going to be easy. After all, I'm at the very beginning of the game, so this must be one of the easier enemies designed to ease me into the combat system. You know, prepare me for the fighting going forward. But it taught me something else entirely. It taught me that there is no easy enemy in this game. There is no easing into anything. The game throws you head first into the deep end of the pool with no paddle, then proceeds to point and laugh at you as you sink. It turns out it's not just one dog that I'm fighting. It's 2 dogs, and when I choose to attack, I'm attacking one limb at a time, 1 dog per turn. I decide to attack the head of one of the dogs. I swing and I miss. One of the dogs bites me. I lose half my health, I'm bleeding, and I have some sort of infection. I swing again, aiming for the head again. This time my attack hits, and I manage to kill one of the dogs. I think to myself, not bad. This isn't actually too bad. Then all of a sudden, I'm met with the box asking me to pick heads or tails. I'm not sure what to think, but I pick tails. A coin flips and it lands on heads. Suddenly I'm no longer in combat. I don't understand what happened, but I'm glad. I knew I was definitely going to die next turn if I played another turn. I quickly start running towards the dungeon, but after surviving around 3 steps, I'm immediately grabbed by the dog and mauled. I'm thrown straight back to the title screen. The somber music plays. That one fight right there taught me that this is not going to be a smooth ride. I died to the very first enemy, to a coin flip of all things. I now understand that I'm not really supposed to take the dogs on straight away though. It tells you to take this game seriously. You're not just going to fluke your way through. It also tells you to use common sense. If you hear vicious barking and the barking's getting closer, then that means you're in danger and you need to get the fuck out of there. This concept of common sense and the way the game uses it is something I find really interesting. Just keep that in mind as we're going to speak about that again. I start again, but this time I dart straight into the dungeon. Immediately the dungeon is oozing with a sense of hopelessness and danger. The ambient noise kicks in, creating a feeling of anxiety and unease. The noise of dripping water echoes, and I can only see a few foot around myself at a time. Other than that, it's complete darkness. I start walking around looking for anything that will give me a bit more of an edge when it comes to the combat, before I'm immediately jump scared again. This time it's a guard, a huge mutated humanoid carrying a bladed weapon. Before combat starts, it lets off a loud and bassy grunt noise. Just like the bark of the dogs, the noise sounds genuinely menacing and raw. As I go to attack its head, I realise something. I realise that the guard has an inhumanely sized penis just hanging between his tree trunk sized legs. Like the dogs, I go for another head attack. I miss again. The guard attacks me with its sword, instantly removing my right arm, taking a huge chunk of health, causing me to bleed and rendering me useless. You see, dismemberment is a big part in this game. It's a great tactic to use when you're wanting to try get rid of an enemy's weapon straight away in order to have an advantage in the fight. Sounds great, right? I mean, this seems like a pretty viable way to deal with enemies, right? Well, the problem is, the enemies can do the exact same thing, but to you. And guess what? Once you lose that arm, you are not replacing it. From my understanding, there is a way to get your arm back, but it's so late in the game and it requires so many things that you've got to do that as a new player, you probably won't survive long enough to do it. If you lose your weapon arm, it is basically a death sentence, as now you're dealing an almost unnoticeable amount of damage each time you attack. This dismemberment mechanic is one very brutal mechanic of the game that feels genuinely unfair. You could be doing great, working your way deeper into the dungeon, collecting loot and progressing with a backpack full of healing items, feeling ready to take on the world. But you are always one attack away from losing your arm, which is essentially a run killer. If you're lucky, you manage to save your game before this happens, but how exactly do you save the game? The save mechanic in Fear and Hunger may be the most notorious aspect of the game. In order to save, you must first find a bed. These beds are by no means common. In a game like this, that's brutal enough. When every single enemy has the potential of killing your run dead in its tracks, then scarcity of save opportunities is brutal. But according to Fear and Hunger, that is not brutal enough. Because in order to save on one of these beds, the player must first flip a coin. Yeah, you heard that right. The player has to flip a coin correctly, guess heads or tails, in order to save the game. This mechanic is one of the cruelest things I've literally ever seen in a video game. But just when it seemed that things couldn't get more bleak, failing to correctly guess that coin flip doesn't just cancel out the save, it also spawns an enemy right next to you that you have to fight. Depending on where you are trying to save and some other factors, you could have a regular guard spawn on you or an extremely strong elite enemy. So yes, if you try to save and you fail the coin flip, the game decides to ruin your day and kill you. The idea of playing this game for hours and hours, slowly and methodically working your way through brutal enemies, finding the items you so desperately need and avoiding the traps just to fail a coin flip and be killed is so unbelievably cruel. But that is part of the experience, and that is what makes Fear and Hunger so different from all the rest. Well, that and the rape. Yes. In Fear and Hunger, there is actual rape. Brutal rape. There's a warning at the beginning of the game about sexual violence, and you might want to take that warning seriously. The dungeon of Fear and Hunger is a depraved and hopeless place. The very atmosphere itself drives all who enters it to madness. The kind of madness that doesn't just stop once it's eaten away at your psyche, but somehow continues and begins to affect you physically too. You see, the creatures roaming the halls of the dungeon are said to have once been regular people exposed to the haunting darkness within. Everything in Fear and Hunger is out to get you, and I mean everything. If you're walking too fast, not really paying attention to your surroundings, looks like you stepped on a nail and now you're bleeding. You better get that bleeding under control, or you're going to bleed to death pretty quick, or just die of an infection anyway. You jump down a toilet hole in hopes of a secret passageway to some overpowered loot. Well, good job, idiot. Now you're stuck down there until you lose your mind and starve to death. You tried to sleep in a bed around the corner from a torture chamber. Not exactly the best idea, idiot. You just woke up with no legs, attached to a table while a crazed man laughing at you continues to hack away at your bloody stumps. Got an infection in your leg from stepping on that nail? You better pull out a bone saw and slowly saw your leg off. And damn, that noise plays in my nightmares. I think you get the point. You really have to stay on your toes in the Dungeon of Fear and Hunger. And when I say stay on your toes, that means everything. Alongside rusty nails, unsafe beds, and demented torturers, you also need to take care of your hunger and your sanity. You know, your basic needs. As if there wasn't enough going on for fuck's sake, you also need to absolutely ransack the place looking for food and comfort items. You feeling a bit scared? Smoke opium, bro. That'll definitely help you to achieve a healthy state of mind, right? Food is hard to come by, even on the quote-unquote easiest difficulty. Which is still fucking unbelievably hard, by the way. And when you're searching for it, you're probably just going to find barrel upon barrel of mouldy bread. But you can find other sane people down there. That should make your journey so much easier, right? An extra set of hands to help you through the difficult fights. Ah yes, the odds are now stacked in your favour. Until that companion just straight up fucking robs you of all your healing items and vanishes the second you step out of the room. This is the point where you all F4 the game, by the way, and drag it into the recycling bin if you have any sense. But if you are a sadomasochistic fuck who does not enjoy fun and simply wants to be absolutely miserable, then you can continue playing to see what other things this fucking hellhole has in store for you. Look, on a more serious note now, I think this game is a work of art. The vibe that this game creates is truly special. It's a brutal blend of absurdity and common sense. Like, damn, of course standing on a rusty nail is going to cause some issues. Of course jumping down a random hole that's covered in blood is going to be a terrible idea. The game messes with your head and has you feeling stupid. The coin flip mechanic has you sitting on the edge of your seat when that mechanic did not necessarily even have to exist in the first place. Any other game out there would have just had the 50% chance calculated in the background. But this game gives you the choice, just to watch you suffer. It just wants you to be conscious of the choice you made, knowing that you made it and now you are dealing with that choice. Fear and Hunger is not impossible. As unfair as it is, just like Dark Souls, once you take the time to actually learn how things work instead of just presuming how it works, you will progress and eventually you will succeed. There is so much more that could be said about this game, but I am conscious of the fact that the majority of the people who are watching this video are going to be people who are yet to play. It's only recently that this game kind of blew up in the West, from my understanding. The game was quite popular in Russia and only Russia until now. I would rather not fill this video with spoilers and show you all the mid to late game surprises, as it really is best experiencing it yourself. That is, if you enjoy being hit in the head over and over with a brick. I'm sure I could have gone deep into the whole philosophical meaning behind Fear and Hunger, but maybe that's a video for another time, if this video gets more than 10 views, that is. Thank you for watching. This is a new channel and it's my first time making this type of content. So if this wasn't absolutely unbearable to watch and you made it this far, please consider giving me a crumb of validation and liking the video. Maybe dropping a comment, and if you really want to validate my existence on this godforsaken planet of despair, then subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be making some more videos on games like this, horror games in general. I probably will be going more in depth for them. This is just my first video for the channel, so I just wanted to try it out and see where it goes, you know. Thank you for watching. Bye.